Sizwe Party and the South African Broadcasting Corporation are in court over the use of the term Government of National Unity. The MK Party wants the public broadcaster to stop referring to the 7th administration as the GNU in its news and current affairs programs. But the SABC is arguing that the party is abusing court process and that the application should be dismissed with costs. Let's get you some analysis now. Legal analyst Kevin Smith joins us. Kevin, always a pleasure having you on. Thanks for your time. What's the basis here and the sort of impetus? What would be the driving force behind this being a successful endeavor for the MKP?
First and foremost, thank you for having me, and good afternoon to the viewers at home. I would like to stress the fact that in a matter of this nature, it is going to be a hard task for the MK Party to actually get success. And that hinges on two things. Firstly, this matter was brought on urgency, and urgency is an inherently hard criteria to meet. And secondly, on the relief that they are trying to actually seek from the court. On both of those, it's going to be actually quite a hard task for the MK to overcome. But I foresee the chances of success being very slim. And the slimness on that is hinged on the fact that it will be very hard for them to prove that this is in fact an urgent matter. Because when it did come up, around about the announcement of the 7th administration, which happened in early June, they only then took 4 weeks thereafter to then actually bring this application forward. And then they still have to prove things like there's irreparable harm, that they have no alternative remedy available in law or internally, and that they actually can win a matter of this nature on a balance of probabilities. When you take those factors into account, before we even get to the merits, it's actually quite hard for the MK Party to find success. And then when we look at what they are asking the public broadcaster to do, they're essentially telling them to censor language or what language to actually use when the public broadcaster, in fact, is just reporting on issues as they come to it. So we have to bear in mind of the fact that the term GNU is not necessarily a legal term, it's a political term that is not a construct of the SABC. It is merely just what the 7th administration has called itself, and what the SABC has now broadcast, and what they have reported on the government actually calling itself.
Yeah, there's also the issue, Kevin, of a free press. And there's no inherent argument to be made here for what you've just mentioned, things like discrimination or defamation, things that you would argue is hurtful or harmful and should be removed from public discourse.
Yes, correct. I mean, you're very right in mentioning that. And one thing that the court actually has to look into when it deliberates on this issue, if it even gets to the merits, which I doubt it will, is the fact that does the GNU incite harm? Does it incite violence? Is it propaganda to incite war? These are the types of things that the court will have to adjudicate upon for matters of this nature. When you look at other cases, not just in our jurisdiction, but internationally, these types of labels, the courts need to actually establish what will this do within the public discourse. Usually they'll find that it's propaganda to incite war, propaganda to incite violence on particular people, or something along those lines. And in this instance, that can't be found. If the MK Party has to allege that it is just a false narrative or it is a false label, that wouldn't be enough to satisfy the court in saying that a term of this nature has to in fact be censored. And even if it does get to that, they have to still prove why they had to approach the courts as a matter of first instance. Why wasn't the BCCSA approached? Why wasn't ICASA approached? Why wasn't the government itself, the ANC, approached? Why wasn't a parliamentary portfolio committee approached? There are so many other alternative remedies that were available to them. So even before we get to the meat of this matter, there are other administrative issues that are going to be very hard for them to overcome.
Yeah, critics have said it's basically an attempt to influence the editorial decisions of the ANC, of the SABC, pardon me, a decision to influence the editorial decisions of the SABC by the MK Party. One of the other things MKP have argued is that what the SABC, and the same can be said for other broadcasters as well, what they're doing by using this term Government of National Unity is that they are misleading the public. They say they are using the kind of phrasing and wording that is used by the African National Congress, and so they are effectively a mouthpiece for the ANC. What do you make of that argument?
Look, I don't think that argument holds much water. And the reason why I say this is, if we have a logical inception of what the MK Party is actually asking the SABC to do, is that they are asking the SABC, when anything is reported on, for the SABC's opinion to influence what it is actually reporting, and for them to then structure its journalistic efforts in accordance with what they think the intention behind any wording or any phraseology might be, which then makes the public broadcaster inherently opinion-based, which then leads us to other issues that we want to avoid, especially when it comes to journalism, and especially when it comes to the public broadcaster. And to the extent that they say that it is misleading the public, their argument as it stands is on the basis of them saying that the SABC is in fact a mouthpiece for the ANC. But the ANC isn't the only party in the GNU. The ANC is one amongst various other parties. So it can't be said that this is a mouthpiece of the ANC, nor can they make that argument on the basis that this is what the government as a collective have called themselves. Had they called themselves something else, that's what the SABC and all other broadcasters would have actually reported on. The fact that they now want the court to make a declaratory order on this is on the basis that they are saying that this GNU is an establishment of apartheid and colonialism. So they are then, by logical conclusion, saying that the SABC, in their reporting, they have to use that same phraseology as well, which then by inference would make them a mouthpiece of the opposition parties that are not within the GNU. Yeah. So these are the types of issues we are contending with, and it's why I feel as though the argument itself doesn't hold much water.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of putting it. The SABC, for its part, also responding, saying the application is without merit. The order the applicants seek would violate the SABC's right to freedom of expression enshrined in Section 16 of the Constitution. Kevin Smith, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Some legal analysis there on this issue. All right, let's take you back to one of our other developing stories now, into the heart of Johannesburg, where our